I'm out at the University of South Carolina. I really enjoyed one thing specifically, working with students. I got joy from that.
Yeah.
And, every time I was helping, I was getting my personal fulfillment from that. Was I making a lot of money? No. I was making some money, but not a whole lot. But at least it was giving me joy. You have to find different ways to close your personal needs.
Mm-hmm.
There was this mindset before around you get everything from your job, and I think that's no longer the case. My consulting work is what paid my bills. I got my joy from that university work, right?
Today I'm joined by Yogesh, a marketing leader, educator, and AI consultant who worked with brands like Spotify and Pinterest and is now helping organizations and students make sense of the evolving AI landscape. In this conversation, we'll explore what it really takes to pivot into a portfolio career after a corporate life and how we can future-proof our careers in an AI-driven world. Yogesh, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk me through your journey from being a corporate leader to a portfolio career.
So that was a massive pivot that happened back in 2014. Most of my time had been with Procter and Gamble. I'd also worked at Amway and Kimberly-Clark as well. When I made this pivot, there were a couple of things that were really shaping my thinking at the time. Number one, I was trying to figure out if I could do something on my own. So that was a big driver. But the second thing also that was driving my decision making at the time was I was actually tired of corporate life. There's a lot that happens in the corporate world, which is really good. There's some things that I just don't care for anymore. And I was like, I need a break. I need to do something different. So I kind of like ventured out on my own. And boy, was that a huge change. It is a different life when you're trying to do something on your own. What I realized very quickly is that you have to do multiple things, like, keep yourself whole, financially, from a mental health perspective, from a joy perspective, and then from a family perspective as well.
Yeah. So why don't we dig into that a little bit? So what are some of the downsides of that pivot?
The downside is that, when you're working for a large organization like I did with Procter and Gamble, you have a lot of infrastructure around you, and especially as a leader, you had people who would do things for you, or partner with you to get things done. When you're doing it on your own, you are it. There's nobody behind you to do all those things. If I wanted to get an income stream for my consultancy, I had to do business development for the very first time. I had to be the guy who had to write master services agreements and proposals and statements of work, which I had never done in my life before. I had to be the legal guy to make sure that when I was signing all these documents that I wasn't putting myself at risk, right? I had to be the finance guy and the accounting guy. All those things that were handled by other people within our organization or members of my team, suddenly I was doing all that work. Oh, by the way, I still had to do the project as well. The time spent to do all those other things suddenly became a question of like, oh my gosh, there's more to this than just saying, oh, I can be an independent consultant or I can be starting my own company. You have to think about all those things, and any choice you make impacts cash flow. It's easy to say, oh, I'll go build a website. I'll go do my branding work. As a marketer, yeah, you can go build a website and you can do all the branding work, but is that going to get you your first account? Probably not. So sequencing all those things suddenly becomes really important in terms of what's really important to do and what's not important to do as much. It was a huge learning curve for the first, I want to say 36 months, lots of trial and error and things like that. The other big learning that I got from all of this stuff is, and somebody actually gave me this advice. I didn't know how to actually execute it. Only in the last couple of years that I've been able to really figure that out. The feedback he'd given me when I started this whole journey, he said, Yogesh, pick a swim lane. He said, be really narrowly focused and be known for something specific. It took me so long, but he was absolutely right, because the moment I picked a swim lane, I saw how my consulting practice actually changed very, very quickly as a consequence of that. Especially for those who are thinking about consulting work, there are two other factors that I would also bring in just to kind of like, level set, right? One is that if you want to be an independent as a consultant, you are going to constantly face this issue, which is that you will be compared to a contractor, at least with large companies. And they will want you to give an hourly rate and so on and so forth. And the moment you go down that pathway, you end up in a situation where it becomes a who's the cheapest per hour kind of situation. And that's not really helpful. So the flip side to that is, okay, how do you create build out value and create a value added perspective, which is fine. But then they say, okay, you want to offer value, then you have to be able to showcase that you've got the infrastructure and the team that can go do that, which you may or may not have. You can certainly build something around yourself for that.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, you may be competing against potentially a McKinsey or whatever. But the big learning I got from that process was the people who are having to make that decision, the lead times are much longer when you're writing big checks, and they also have a risk on their side, which is that if you're an unknown entity, then their neck is on the line also.
Yeah.
But if it's a well-known company, they can blame that well-known company, and everybody would be more forgiving. And then with AI is that some of the consulting work is probably going to disappear because AI can do it for you. Not you as the consultant doing the work, the company can do the work of a consultant. Therefore, what's the value add that you're actually bringing?
When I started to be a full-time coach, I wanted to coach. I wanted to work with people. And as you said, you have to also do something else. So I think that this is now always true for any kind of independent work that people are doing. So you want to do your craft, but then also you have to market yourself. Yourself means social media, it means being in front of people. And those are two totally different jobs. And you might be good at your core craft, but if you're not good also at the marketing aspect, it's going to be very difficult. Let's think about or talk to me about what the advantages are, but maybe in the context of, what was the tipping point that made you rethink your career path?
I've been lucky to have worked in some really good companies, but I've also been unlucky with some of those companies as well because, downsizing has happened, roles have changed, in some instances, the personalities have been, an issue and all that kind of stuff. Right? And I'm kind of like hardwired to be a builder. I'm not a person who can come in and just do maintenance work in the company. So, fit sometimes becomes an issue as well. So all those were like the triggers that led to, some of these changes. Now, at the end of the day, we all have to pay bills. So this is where the consulting work became really important for me because I realized I could earn more money, but I had to be consistently getting projects or creating some sort of, a recurring revenue that would allow you to earn that kind of money. There are really three things you can do. You could be the contractor person who comes in and plugs a hole for a company for a few months. You could do fractional work. All that stuff is one space. You could do one-off projects, but then you're constantly chasing companies on those one-off projects.
Yeah.
Or you can build your own product, right? And you sell that product and make that your way to create recurring revenue. But to do that, you have to create something. So in my world of consulting and marketing, what can I really create as a product? I'm not creating a physical product like a pen or something. I'm creating, knowledge. So I have to create frameworks. That's the selling point. I'm creating, with these custom GPT agents you can build today, you can build certain things around that now, which nobody else can offer. And suddenly that starts creating interest, that starts creating conversations. That's what gets people to come to you as opposed to you having to chase them. The other part is the pivot to and do other things. My consulting work is what paid my bills. I got my joy from that university work, right? Similarly, in other situations that I've done something similar where you have to kind of like find different ways to close your personal needs. There was this mindset before around you get everything from your job, and I think that's no longer the case.
That's I think that's an interesting discussion to have. You can't get everything from anything, right? Like life is too complicated to be able to single out one thing that is going to give you happiness or give you everything that you need. There are different approaches to that, right? So there are people that say, I have a very strong passion. I do that a lot in my life, and I all I need is a job that gives me money so that I can do that I can do what I need to do. And then there are, on the flip side, there are people that are saying, I really want to do all the time what I love to do, because that's the reason why I get up in the morning. It's a mission that goes beyond myself. It's usually something that, makes the world a better place, and that's what I want to do. The majority of people are in the middle, or that the majority of people are not conscious of what they're doing. So they have a job, they make money, but they are not fully fulfilled in that. But then they also haven't really invested in like the other part. So I think you have to do one or the other.
It's very true, right? So, people say, follow your dreams or follow your passion. I think there's truth to that to a certain degree. Because if it's not something that you're doing, you're not going to do it anyways. And you're going to be, you know, um, you're not going to feel good about yourself, and others will feel it too, right? So, for your own sanity and for the sanity of others around you, you know, don't stick to something that you don't want to do,
Yeah.
just because you have to, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's important to identify what your purpose is. And I think a lot of people are missing the purpose element of life. Have a purpose. It doesn't matter what you do. It won't make you happy. So the area that you've invested a lot of time in is in AI, a topic that
Mhm.
we both share quite a bit. When we spoke last, we had a long discussion around the advantages for society and disadvantages. I
Mhm.
would I would really like to make this conversation around the future proofing your career. There's going to be many advantages and many disadvantages. Many of them we don't know.
Yeah.
What's your advice?
The first thing is, don't be afraid of it. That's the first thing. Don't There are too many people out there who are on the fence. They're saying, I'm dabbling with it. I do a little bit of, email development here, this, that, and the other. They're dabbling. And I'm saying, no, jump in with both feet. You need to do that because it's a new skill set, it's a new tool that is available to you, and it can actually help you in a very big way and in ways that you may have not actually anticipated, to be perfectly honest with you, right? Think about what is it that you want your job to look like with AI being part of it. Don't wait for somebody to come and tell you that. You need to start imagining it yourself, right? And it's going to get you out of your comfort zone in a very big way. So what I tell people is to say, okay, there are things that you do in your job. Can AI do that better for you? Some of those parts of your job. And I'll give you a couple of examples just to make the point. Let's say, for example, you have to write proposals for your job. You're the guy who has to write the proposals. You have to work with everybody else in the team to pull all that information together, and you have to write the proposal. There's a structure to a proposal. There's content that has to come in that has to be thought through and written. Can AI help you generate the proposal and do the first draft of that proposal for you? Instead of you having to write it, let AI write it for you with the structure, and you input all the content, and it'll do all that stuff for you, right? You can then go in and work it and improve on it, right? That's a way you can leverage AI to help you be more effective in your job.
Mhm.
So my point basically is that you have to first start with the fact that this is a tool. It's not going to replace you, but it can actually make you do your job more effectively.
Mhm.
If you come with that mindset, then you will actually start building out the specific use cases where you can actually have it help you do your work more effectively. Does it give you more capacity? Of course it does, right? Because what would have taken you 6 weeks to do, you may get it done within 2 hours, right? But that doesn't mean that just because you've got capacity, that the company then has the right to come and say to you, "Oh, do more work." Who's the beneficiary of that? Is it the company or is it actually you because you become more efficient? That's a question mark that nobody has answered yet, and I don't think anybody knows just yet.
I think it will be the company because they're paying you.
So I think there's going to be a balance that has to be struck there. And I don't think we know the answer to what that balance is going to look like just yet. I think it's still too early to know that.
So you're talking primarily about large language, using the use of large language models. Dive into the educating yourself on AI a little bit more.
Mhm.
Do you have any good tools that you would recommend for executives to use or learn about, so that they can better apply AI in their work?
There are a couple of things that you'll always be doing. You'll always be creating presentations. You're always going to be doing, some sort of priority setting. You're always doing something that requires analysis of something, whether it's structured or unstructured data, right? Preparing for management meetings or whatever. Those tools don't exist today. So I self-taught myself how to build custom GPT agents, for example, right? And I've built a custom GPT agent that helps me do that. I have a management meeting coming up. This is the presentation. Be my, critique it, right? Simple tool like that, and it'll go in and it'll tell me, Yogesh, this is where you're effing up. This is where you should kind of like reposition. It gets me far better prepared for any presentation I'm doing now because it's my thinking partner at the end of the day. It's not replacing me. It's my thinking partner.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is, dive head on in, see what parts of your job you can use AI to make you better, and make you save time, and that will give you the most exposure and best education on AI.
Yeah.
Let's take it a level deeper.
Yep.
So this is we're talking about today,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say even in 5 years, right? Which is in AI time like 50 years.
Yep.
So now AI has solved all of those problems that you've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
What's the value of the human?
Okay, now we're getting a bit philosophical here, my friend. So let's kind of like unpack that a little bit. So even with AI, and even if it solves all of our current problems that we have, that doesn't mean we will not have other pain points that have never been solved for just yet, that still need to be solved for. I think what's going to happen is that those other pain points will start emerging. Perhaps even new pain points will emerge. And that's where the human will still be needed to solve for those pain points because AI won't be able to solve them.
So get
Uh,
a little bit more specific in what
yeah.
is it that the human can do that the
Mhm.
machine can't, or what can the machine do very well that the human, you know, can't do better?
Yeah. So, repetitive tasks, things that require, analysis and things like that, AI can do a much better job than humans can do. So it'll become just better and smarter at that. The place where AI still struggles, I don't think it's going to be solved in the next 5 years or even 10 years, is the ability of AI to be creative. That creative skill set is uniquely owned by humans. So AI can screen ideas, it can tell you if it's a good or bad idea, but to come up with the idea, it struggles. It struggles in a very big way. It could reapply other ideas to the pain point or whatever you're trying to solve for, but it will not come up with a creative way or a completely out of the box thinking way to come up with an unknown idea approach to solve that particular problem that you've got. AI just cannot do that.
I think about this is a little bit different, but maybe it's the same thing. Is,
Yeah.
there will be, as always in the world,
Mm.
there are certain people that are necessary, that set the intention of solving a problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
what problem are we solving needs to be initiated by a human.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that though those today there are very few people that do that, right? There are some entrepreneurs that do that. There's some people in larger companies that do that. There are some people in government and non-for-profit that do that. The majority of humans don't do that. The majority of humans, they show up at work and they get told what to do, and they do that work. and
Mm-hmm.
and a large part of that, what they're doing today, will be done by AI much better than they can do it. And yes, there might be new areas that we have not even thought of yet that will
Mm-hmm.
have to be done by a human. We're going to need fewer people that are going to make those decisions. And also, what it requires, and I think that this is what the recommendation that I make to my clients when I help them retool for this AI world, is to lean into the things that are innately human. And
Mm-hmm.
that is not empathy, but actually is compassion. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Empathy just means that you understand what other people are doing and how they're doing it and what they want and needs are. Compassion really is to then also feel for them.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that a machine is not capable of doing. What I'm concerned about is that AI is actually already starting to make us dumber, because there's so many times where I'm trying to create something and I could just easily just go to ChatGPT and ask it to do it for me.
Yeah.
And so it I think that we're starting to already see that people are leaning in towards having AI do all kinds of stuff for us that in the
Mm-hmm.
past we did ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it does not develop the critical thinking that is necessary for us to come up with these novel ideas. And so
Mm-hmm.
we really have to, as humans, train and to really lean into the these human elements that enable us to do what you said that is necessary for the future.
Critical thinking is the most important skill set that everybody needs to have. And that's something that we have to build into our young people so that they know how to evaluate what the output that you're getting from ChatGPT or any large language model is robust and good and validated, and not to accept it as truth. So the critical thinking actually has to be broken up into its subcomponent parts as well, and we have to educate our young people on that. And that requires us to start thinking about it, saying, what do we mean by critical thinking in the first place? What does that actually mean, right? And how does it dimensionalize it? How should we structure it so that we can teach other people on how to do that? That is something I wholeheartedly agree with you, and we have to educate our young people with that, because unlike them, people like you and me who have experience, we can see the output from these large language models and we know intuitively this is good, this isn't great, this is rubbish. And we can judge that because we've got experience. A young person doesn't have that yet,
Yes.
right? So we have to show them how to do all that stuff as a baseline so that they can start then evaluating and know what to do with what they're getting as output from that. So that's,
The challenge is
yeah.
that we're that a lot of the entry level jobs are being taken away or will be taken away, if they haven't not already, by
Yeah.
AI. And so how do you get people to learn, right? and
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
so does that also then just exacerbate the income inequality, because the people that where his father is part of the board, and of course he's going to get an apprenticeship at Google to learn with the head of data science about like what it is to
Mm-hmm.
learn what they need to learn. But for the average person, you're an immigrant kid, will they have that opportunity? I think that that's going to be a challenge for us.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that 100%, on both those points that you're making. And, we're all seeing the headlines about like, entry level jobs are disappearing, this, that, and the other. My personal opinion, this is a pendulum that's going to swing back because I think companies are going to realize that, yeah, we thought we could be more efficient and we can take these jobs away and, save on headcount. My personal opinion is they're going to come back and say, no, no, no. We need entry level people not doing what we did in the past. They'll do different things, but we will still need them for XYZ reason, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot to still figure out about AI and how it's going to, what the opportunities are going to be for people working with it. Um, I mean, I agree with you. I think that no matter what the outcome is going to be, right? The
Hmm.
genie's out of the box. We're not going to be able to put the genie back in. So there's no
That's
point
correct.
in not embracing it, because you have to continue to live and you have to continue to figure out how you can add value in this new economy. A lot of these things do concern me quite a bit, and I'm trying to figure out how is it, and what are the things that make us innately human. And I invest as much time in that, or actually maybe
Mhm.
more time in understanding humanity and understanding my own humanity,
Mhm.
as I am also investing in
But how do you know? I talked about joy for me and how I was getting my joy in my professional life, right? Others are doing it differently. What makes us happy? What makes us sad? What makes us pensive? What makes us reflective? What makes us engaged, right? On something. All these are emotionally driven things. That's not a rational reason. That's an emotional reason, right? So the humanity part that you're talking about, fully agree with you, but it's all linked back to emotion and how we want our emotions to connect us to each other. That's going to be the part that I think is going to become really, really interesting, quite frankly speaking, with AI in our midst right now.
well, thank you for your time. I think there's a lot that we could have gone into more
Yes.
into
Yeah.
in the limited time that we have, but I really appreciate your you sharing your insights and your experience, and I'll have to have you back on in a year and see how things have changed, and how your view and my view has changed about the future of work in this new work world.
I would love that. And Stephen, this has been a fantastic conversation. So thank you so much for hosting me and giving me the opportunity to speak to you about this as well. I really do appreciate that.